FP1, FP2 in the books. Not a great deal learnt, but we're going to try and dig deep and find out what my final thoughts are ahead of the Canada Grand Prix regardless. It's pretty late here in the UK. We just had FP2, so it's going on like towards midnight at this point. So all is nice and quiet in my household, with exception to the maelstrom within my own brain. What to do, who to go for? Do we trust Red Bull? Do we trust McLaren? Oh, Mercedes suddenly on the menu, or Aston Martin on the menu? It's going to be that weekend. I feel like kind of my main takeaway, which probably doesn't fill a lot of people with a lot of confidence, but my main takeaway from FP1, FP2 is we could see chaos this weekend. We could see some chaos. We got the results of FP2 on the screen. FP1 was pretty much a washout, so I haven't even really looked at that. Obviously, we haven't got any like real long running. I don't imagine many of the teams did much long running. Kind of in general, most of them were on soft tyres, so which won't be the optimal tyre for long runs in the actual race. Most likely, it could be wet all weekend. Last time I checked, it was like 80% chance rain in qualifying, 40 to 60% chance during the race, which is still like quite a high percentage to be fair. So it could be one of those just crazy weekends where anything could happen. And so in terms of our fantasy teams, you can look at it in a couple of different ways. You can look at it like, okay, we need to play it like ultra safe, just pick the safest drivers and just go with it. Alternatively, this could be an opportunity to just kind of take a bit of a punt. Funnily enough, actually, I took a bit of a punt here last year where I dropped out. Who did I drop out? I dropped out Perez in favour of Leclerc. It ended up actually costing me in the end because I think Perez ended up with fastest lap, if I'm not mistaken, something like that, which ended up pushing him above Leclerc. But anyway, that's a long time ago. Let's forget about last year. Let's look about what's in front of us this weekend. And coming into this weekend, there's lots of chit chat about this track favouring the Ferraris. They're good in straight line. They're also good in the slow corners, and that's pretty much what this track is. Canada is pretty much just straight lines and then slow medium corners. So one of my favorite tracks for sure. It doesn't look like an amazing track, but it flows nicely in my opinion. I do enjoy it, and I think the Ferraris are going to enjoy it as well. That said, are they going to be that far ahead of like the McLarens or the Red Bulls? Do we expect the Red Bulls to come back strong after the big disappointment in Monaco? Obviously, looking at the practice session times from FP2 on screen at the moment, you're not thinking that. But obviously, Max Verstappen's also had this ERS problem, which meant he only went out for a couple of laps effectively, and came back in, and the car was back in the garage for the rest of the session. So suddenly there's question marks over reliability because that was a whole new load of engine components that was just put into the car today, and suddenly they're like potentially on fire. So is there question marks over Red Bull reliability? Question marks over Red Bull's actual pace. Coming in here, the talks of the bumpiness of the track, although that should have been evened out with the relaying of the track. The big curbs that you have to ride these curbs around Canada to get the lap time, and the Red Bulls just don't like the big curbs, having to run soft suspension, etc., etc. So there's lots of talk going into the weekend. Ferrari's going to look good. Red Bulls might struggle. McLaren's just kind of thereabouts. They look good kind of everywhere they go. So lots of people thinking that maybe we should stick with those kind of heavy McLaren Ferrari builds, and I'm still kind of pretty much an advocate for that at the moment, whilst it's kind of uncertain. But yeah, so looking at just quickly before we move on to the actual team, we'll just reference what's going on here. We see the Aston Martins at P1 and P3. We know Stroll pretty good in the wet. We know Fernando Alonso pretty good everywhere in any condition. It's Fernando Alonso, but Fernando Alonso does also just like this track. I think he was similar sort of performance around here last year as well, putting in some purple sectors. Should be noted as well, I think Hamilton, you see George Russell there in P2. Hamilton went like purple sector 1, purple sector 2 before he got completely blocked basically by one of the Ferraris right at the sort of last chicane, so we never really saw that true lap time come through. So Lewis Hamilton, 7-time winner around here, could be a dark horse for this weekend. The Mercedes, could it be time to take a punt on the Mercedes? Could it be time to take a punt on the Aston Martins? It's like I said, it's one of those weekends. Let's ditch this off for a minute and we can have a look at my actual team that I got at the moment, which didn't fare too well in Monaco for anyone that's followed me thus far. But yeah, is it a weekend of just playing it safe, sticking with a team kind of like what I've got at the moment, or taking a bit of a punt? And when I say taking a bit of a punt, you could go kind of a big punt and go, okay, I trust the Mercedes, I trust Russell and Hamilton, I'm going to go in the Mercedes. That enables me to free up someone like Lance Stroll to afford one of the big heavy hitters like a Carlos Sainz, for example, and go completely kind of off the wall, trusting the Mercedes. This seems a little bit, maybe a little bit too extreme. I'm normally a fantasy manager that likes to play it a bit more safe. And by safe, I mean if I was going to do something like this, I'd probably want to stick more like the McLaren. But then that doesn't open up much opportunity for my budget unless I want to take a -10 for dropping Sonoda, which I don't want to do. It doesn't, with my budget, I can't just hop it down to one of these big hitters. But I've already touched on the fact, Mr. P1 here from FP2 and someone that's just kind of special around this track as well could open up the door for a performance from Fernando Alonso. And then also, with further uncertainty, could we also be looking at autopilot, Chip? I don't think I've already heard anyone mention autopilot. Forgive me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not up to date with the latest content creators craze, but I haven't heard anyone talk about it personally. So is anyone out there thinking about autopilot? It's something that's crossed my mind. Is there better opportunities down the line? Do people think it's better suited for a sprint race? I'm not convinced it is suited for a sprint race. I feel like in a way it could also be, it's kind of, this is a kind of a weekend where I think it actually might be legitimately quite good to use autopilot, because if you've got, a couple of people like Leclerc or an Alonso or Leclerc on a Sainz or something like that, you've got two drivers that are very capable of winning a race, podium, etc. And there's so much uncertainty with the rain, 80% chance of rain in qualifying, for example, the last time I looked, that could cause chaos. We could see Leclerc crash out of Q1 or something, and suddenly your autopilot's looking fantastic when Fernando Alonso sticks it on pole. And I think the latest stat was the last 7 winners here have come from pole or something like that. Something along those lines. That's what Crofty was saying in FP2. I don't know how true that is, but anyway, yes. So I genuinely think that autopilot's definitely on my radar. I wasn't really thinking about it until kind of earlier today, and the rain was forecast, and there's so much uncertainty as us fantasy managers coming into this weekend. We were hoping FP1, FP2 would give us some real clear direction, and for me personally, it hasn't really done that. The McLarens, if we just hop it back to these times as well, you see the McLarens back there, P16, P20. Lots of people thinking like, oh, I'm not sure what's going on there, but they were, I believe, mostly on the medium tyre for those kind of quicker times. So maybe they're just kind of getting themselves set up for the race, and maybe they're well prepared for some decent race pace. There is some possibility for overtaking. Well, I don't think it's the best track for overtaking, but there certainly is opportunity for it. It's really, really up in the air, and yeah, I kind of like a team like this, taking a bit of a punt on Fernando Alonso, and then, if the Red Bulls are coming back strong in Barcelona with their upgrade that Helmut Marko's let slip, then we can probably quite comfortably kind of transfer back towards like a Red Bull. We could even use the wild card if you've got that in the pocket as well. Transfer back into kind of the Red Bull dream team for Barcelona. This is a team that I'm actually capable of putting together today with $500,000 or so left in the bank, and this was like the dream team from just a couple of races ago, and it's something that I haven't even heavily considered just because Red Bull have just gone really taken a nosedive in the opinions of many fancier manager, myself included. So although this is a possibility for me and it looks like a fantastic team historically speaking from a couple of races ago, I'm not really sure this is such a special team going forward. So yeah, I am kind of and ahhing thinking that maybe whilst there's uncertainty, someone like Fernando Alonso could be an opportunity. We could go kind of drastic, like I touched on already. If we just revert Leclerc back in there, we could kind of go a bit crazy and put in like a Lewis Hamilton, just really back Hamilton Mercedes. Like if you want to take a big old punt, maybe this is just the week to do it. Rain and Red Bull off it, uncertainty, who's actually doing well, put autopilot on. Maybe we finally see a driver of the day that's not a McLaren or a Ferrari. Maybe this is Lewis Hamilton's week. I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting a bit too ahead of myself, too excited. I don't know. Just like I'm just ready for the chaos. I'm ready for the rain to mix things up. If I'm slightly less daring, I'm probably sticking more towards the McLarens. And again, I could take a -10, or I could fiddle about and sort out my team in terms of using a wild card or the -10, or to avoid the -20, for example. So I could slip in like an Oscar Piastri, and that means I'd be sat down with Mr. Sargent. The free budget driver option here doesn't look too bad in my opinion. And again, autopilot could come into play here with someone like Piastri, or again, if you don't want Piastri and you think the Ferraris are going to be the strongest, you go with someone like Carlos Sainz, depending on budget. There's plenty of opportunities, plenty of scope for trying things out this weekend. And I guess my kind of main takeaway is that I'm still not convinced by Red Bull, even before, Perez hasn't looked particularly exciting for several weeks now. He hasn't looked particularly exciting for FP2 either. Again, we could kind of just take a week off from Red Bulls before they come back, potentially strong in Spain in a couple of weeks. I don't know. I don't know what other people are thinking. Are people thinking, let's just play it safe? Let's just, play it safe, or do I can't take a risk? And again, when there's uncertainty and we don't know, I was going into this weekend thinking if Red Bull look like phenomenal, I'm just going to kind of go in with the Red Bull team, whatever. But they certainly haven't set the world alight. They've more just kind of set their car alight. And I'm thinking that maybe this is an opportunity for just another week of potentially growing the budget a bit more. I don't know what you guys think. In terms of growing the budget, you've got the Ferraris in there, Leclerc Sainz, the Ferrari constructor, all opens up opportunity for growing the budget. If we, again, the more drastic of us have faith in the likes of Hamilton, and that opens up opportunity to get rid of Logan Sargent, frees up like 10 million, maybe looking at bringing back Sonoda, maybe Ocon with that 5-place grid penalty looks like a good opportunity potentially as well. I don't know. It's late on a Friday night. I'm pretty tired, so maybe I'm just slightly delirious, but maybe I'll think more clearly in the morning. But you wanted my final thoughts, and these are kind of my final thoughts. Obviously, got FP3 still to come, and the deadline is 9 o'clock UK time, I believe, on Saturday. So I'll definitely have some more clear thoughts going into that, and hopefully get a little bit of interaction on Twitter and that tomorrow evening. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I'm kind of a little bit kind of off the Red Bulls. For me personally, I could do something drastic like this. I could stick with the McLarens. I kind of want to spread my bets a little bit, and I'm certainly open to the possibility of using autopilot. I don't know what other people are thinking in terms of autopilot. Is it? Am I crazy? Am I tired and delirious? I don't know. I'd like to know what you guys think. But that's kind of where I'm at roughly. I'm kind of interested in just growing a bit more budget if I can pinch a couple of million rises. I'm not sure how likely these million rises are going to be. I think Monaco is a bit of an exception because of the nature of several DNFs dragging the average down, the lack of overtaking from the back markers, again, dragging the average point scoring down. So everyone at the front just exploded in terms of budget. I'm not sure we'll quite see such big budget rises. We could be back to the 0.3 rises from these tier B categories, tier B category drivers. But there's also potential for chaos given the amount of rain, and who knows what's going to happen in qualifying. Hulkenberg is another good option here, where the track that should suit the Hazes. They've been pretty decent in slow speed stuff, and also some good straight line speed, so they could suit the Hazes as well. If you're looking at someone like a Hulkenberg, potentially good at qualifying, if he keeps it up there, then maybe they can stick it in some good points, and Hulkenberg could be a good option going forward. But yeah, the general gist of what I'm trying to get at is I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm interested in potentially taking a couple of punts and maybe using the autopilot to kind of cover myself off. So that's kind of the summary of a very tired Tom this Friday evening. Hope that's kind of been interesting for you guys, and I'm really, really curious to know what you guys are thinking. Of course, we've got the F1 Fantasy Tools simulations to come out. They'll probably be out by the time I wake up in the morning, so I'll have a look at them. I don't have access to them at the moment. And if there was any long runs, then we can pick that up on various accounts on Twitter as well, which would be quite useful to see any long run data, qualifying pace from F1 website themselves, see what they have to say. It's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, at the time of recording, I don't have access to any of that at the moment, so keep an eye out for that if you haven't already looked. But yeah, otherwise that's kind of it for me for now, and then I'll be back again ahead of the Spanish Grand Prix, which is in a couple of weeks. So yeah, thanks very much for listening to me, guys, and good luck this weekend. Are you taking a punt? Are you keeping it safe? Are you using autopilot? Are you doing something completely different? Do you trust the Red Bulls? Verstappen 2 times all the way? Who knows? Yeah, let me know, and catch you soon. Thanks for listening to me.